judging the CEO's performance, how long is enough? It's a very loaded question, but I will try. And let me just start off with a few comments. First and foremost, the CEO and the board play on the same team. If they're in Man United, they're called Man United or Man U. Or if they're in Arsenal, they're both in Arsenal. Or Leicester, okay. They're both there. It's not about us versus them. It is about how can management and the board deliver value for the shareholders. So it is about how does the board support the CEO to deliver on his mandate. Because when the CEO delivers on his mandate, who takes credit? Who takes credit? The board or the chairman. Yeah, so they're both on the same team. And one of the main characteristics of boards that have been seen over time to be highly effective are those boards that support the CEO on delivering their mandate. So when the CEO achieves their targets, the board has achieved their target. In corporate governance, we talk about the triangle, the shareholders playing their bit, the management playing their bit, and the board playing their bit. So why, first and foremost, judge the CEO's performance? First, sometimes the board's expectations of the CEO are totally misaligned to what the CEO themselves have set out to do. I was told of a board once that recruited a very young CEO. They were the type of board that Paul was talking about a few minutes ago when he said the average age was 67. So they recruit this young CEO, and off he goes to South Africa and comes back with very nice ideas about how he can move this organization to the next level. And of course, those ideas were not aligned to what the board members' view about the next level was. And therefore, the board and the CEO started quarreling. So the first thing you must do is, part of the evaluation of a CEO is to actually align the expectations. That this is what we expect of you and you clearly understand it, and this is what we are going to do in order to support you. Secondly, it's about aligning the CEO's activities to the organization's mission and strategic plan. So during that process, it is an opportunity to actually step back and say, this is our mission, this is why we came to be, this is our strategic plan, where are we, how are we getting there? Thirdly, is to provide a mechanism to assess how effectively the CEO is implementing the board policies and decisions. Because the board cannot be successful without implementation. The board probably meets 4 times in a year, and they finish their meeting and they go away. But unless they have a very effective implementer, then their decisions are actually not useful to the shareholders. The other one is to provide an objective basis for recognizing and rewarding excellent performance by the CEO. So you have a CEO who's performing very, very well. How do you recognize that performance? How do you reward it? So that even them, they're actually motivated. So that judging the CEO's performance gives you that opportunity in a formal process to actually do that. To improve the sense of commitment, this is the time you have a discussion with the CEO and you actually rally him or her around the mission and the strategies that the organization has. To set the performance culture of the organization, that's a powerful one. Because when staff are aware that the CEO's performance is also being assessed, is also being checked, then who are they? Even them, they will actually perform. So that actually sets the performance culture of the organization to maximize the CEO's strengths and tackle weaknesses. An effective process when you're evaluating a CEO is a process that actually identifies the strong points, and then how do we harness those strong points? A process that then says we have challenges here, what are we going to do to ensure that we tackle the challenges so that we can achieve what we have set out to do? To provide a basis for performance expectations, they might be misaligned, so this is an opportunity to actually do that. To establish a process for providing constructive feedback, I have a picture later in the presentation where the chairman is sitting with the CEO and just telling the CEO, this is what I think about your performance last year, but before I tell you, tell me what you think about yourself. It's supposed to be a conversation between the board, represented by the chairperson and the CEO, and to provide a mechanism for linking compensation to CEO performance. And Paul did allude to this, that CEO performance, CEO executive pay must actually be linked to performance. That's the only way we can be accountable to the shareholders. Now, is it beneficial to the CEO to go through this process? Yes. In many ways, it is an opportunity for the CEO to learn from the board what their expectations are, to learn from them what the expectations of the shareholders are, to anticipate the future of the organization. What is the board going to ask of him or of her? To challenge, because sometimes the board might actually be going off on the wrong tangent. So it's actually an opportunity for the CEO to challenge some of the assumptions that the board has, to interpret those assumptions, then to decide which route to take, and then to align. Having said all that, judging a CEO's performance starts right from the day you hire the CEO. Because this is the time, and this is when you get people who perform very well at interviews, but when they come to actually performing the job, you say, did we actually hire the right person? Or this person actually came in second or third, but when it comes to actually delivering on the job, perhaps they didn't express themselves very well. So as a board, when you're hiring a CEO, you start judging the performance of the CEO right from the day they appear before you. Because all those things will matter when you actually sit together with the CEO to discuss performance. So first and foremost, you must create a clear job description so that the CEO is clear in his or her mind that they are required to build 10 kilometers of road. That according to them, they're not required to build 5. At the end of the day, you start arguing. So have a very clear job description, have the right employment contract in place. Remember the point about linking performance to pay. Know what skills are important for the CEO by the time you're going to recruit a CEO, and therefore link it to the time that you're going to evaluate him or her. You've got to know what skills you're looking for. Check out past performance. And then evaluation becomes a continuous process. You judge the CEO's performance based on set objectives and parameters for measuring that performance. You review performance regularly so that you ensure that you are able to give feedback. It doesn't help me if you wait until the end of the year to tell me, actually, Catherine, you haven't delivered. I think it's best that you give me continuous feedback so that where I have some blind spots, I can actually start to ensure that I have a clearer view. Key considerations when you're judging a CEO's performance. First, it is very, very important that you actually allow the CEO time to settle in. So don't recruit a CEO today, and in 1 month's time, you're saying, let's sit down for a performance review. It's important that you allow them time to settle in, and how much time you allow them to settle in depends on the nature and complexity of the business. Some businesses are simple, some are complex. Are they insiders? Are they outsiders? If they're outsiders, they may take a little more time to settle in. What about your priorities? You recruit a CEO today, and tomorrow you have major projects that you're looking at, and therefore they have had no time to settle in, but they're actually concentrating on the projects you have. Secondly, have an agreed common purpose for the CEO, evaluation between yourself and the CEO, design a process for identifying goals, monitoring progress, and assessing annual performance. That's critical. And then identify the appropriate areas on which you're going to rate the CEO's performance. I think many boards make the mistake that when you carry out a board evaluation, and one of the sections is actually looking at the performance of the CEO, that is equivalent to assessing the performance of the CEO. Actually not. They are totally different. As a board member, you're assessing them from a different perspective. Decide the best way to gather the information required. Are you going to talk to the people the CEO works with? Communicate effectively with the CEO. Give them feedback. Allow them to challenge you. Have a discussion. It's actually a discussion. One of the ways of judging the CEO's performance is actually using the balanced scorecard. It's very simple. What does the public expect of us? How are we going to measure our success internally, externally? What about innovation? We talked about innovation this morning. What do the customers expect of us? All that goes around the strategic plan that you have. Yeah, so you can actually base the CEO's judgment of that. Another way is ensuring that you have a common purpose with the CEO. The CEO is very clear on their expectations, capability, they have the capability to deliver, and you ensure that they are actually committed to delivering. The 4 C's of performance management. In summary, the process should be regular and formal to avoid subjectivity in judgment. Allow time for settling in, considering all the circumstances. Are they an insider? Are they an outsider? Through the evaluations, boards can systematically maintain accountability for the actions of the CEO. You hear boards saying it was the CEO, it was not us. The accountable party is actually the board. But if they evaluate the CEO properly, then they'll be very comfortable to take accountability for the CEO's performance. The evaluation is conducted to facilitate CEO improvement. It's always about improvement. It's not fault finding. It's about improving performance. And the board should aim at making performance expectations clear for the CEO, and using the formal evaluation strengthens alignment between the mission, the goals, the strategic plan, so on and so forth. Simple. Set expectations for the CEO, invite their commitment, measure the progress, provide feedback to the CEO, link it to consequences, remember the pay, and then evaluate how effective the process is. An evaluation should be about a discussion between the CEO and the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me say I agree with what Catherine has presented here. Actually, there would be a lot of overlaps if I had or decided to go through that kind of a presentation. So we agree with it. But let me go to the few comments that I would like to share more practical from my own experience, plus maybe to jog your memories. The topic we are dealing with now is how long is enough for a CEO, and time frame to judge a CEO performance. And from where I sit, It's a very complex question. Why? Because it depends who is asking it. Is it the board or is it the CEO? Would the answer be different if the CEO is asking? And would it be different if it's the board that is asking? Maybe from my own experience where I worked at the Kenya School of Government, I was there for one contract in government universities and research institutions. We give them 5 years contracts, and of course evaluated every year. So I was there for 5 years, that's one contract, and I got to the second contract. By the time I was leaving, actually I had felt I needed to leave. So as a leader, you must know when to leave. Because you cannot have gone to an organization without knowing why have you gone there, purpose. So that you know you have delivered your purpose and you should move on. Therefore, that's why I'm saying it depends who is asking that question. It is also good for the leader to ask themselves that so that they know they have a time frame within which they have to deliver their vision and move on to another organization which might be different, and one might not necessarily serve the same period as maybe they served in the previous, simply because even that question, the environment under which we work in can make a difference in how long you stay in one organization. I would also say that question, how long is enough, can vary. In private sector, it's very clear, your targets are very clear, resources may be available, you understand your customers very well, and you know what is expected with you. But in public service, it is very complex, goals change overnight, resources are never available, people's attitude is an issue. Therefore, that's why I'm saying it varies, so that when we find ourselves in private sector or public service, you build a theory of what would be meaningful in your context. For example, permanent secretaries, we give them 5 years. And they serve at the pressure of who? The appointing authority. Therefore, if you are delivering, perhaps you might finish the 5 years. If the administration is cut short, you don't finish the 5 years. And then that can also make you understand why working in the private sector, much as you are very clear through medium-term plan, what you want to deliver for those 5 years, so that because we have segmented our vision 2030, in 5 years, what you need to deliver, a lot of other things comes at play that makes it difficult, maybe for the board, which is the cabinet, or even in state corporation, sometimes to be very strict, what period should you have. Therefore, I submit that question, I took it as being asked by the board. And I argue that the board should be answering that question, how long is enough, and the time frame to judge the CEO, and agree with Catherine that it starts at the recruitment. Never hire the wrong CEO. Are you aware of people who have hired the wrong CEO? Yeah, people have hired the wrong CEO just to find 3, 4, 6 months. We hired the wrong person. And that is very costly to the organization. Therefore, to me, evaluation of being able to predict how long a CEO is going to perform starts at recruitment. So when we bring you at Public Service Commission and you sit on an interview, we are very concerned that we hire the right person. Therefore, the criteria will be very clear as per the ad. We will look for the very objective tools so that you capture the right person. And we want to know, how do you know you are recommending the right person? You also must be able to know what do you want this person as a CEO you are hiring is going to deliver. And that's why you spend a lot of time wanting to hear from the person you are hiring as a CEO what vision do they bring to this organization? And that will also be able to tell you, have they sat and reflected and know as they are coming to this organization, they are bringing a certain purpose with a value proposition. It is also important to know that they should be able to articulate high-level strategy for the organization. And in my own experience, it's like sometimes I'm not very sure if CEOs deliver their own vision or the vision of the board. And my CEO is here. And actually, I do not know. I don't know what Martin thinks. But sometimes I think we deliver CEO's vision. Therefore, it's very important to have a linkage and an agreement. What CEO's vision is must be the CEO, nearly the board CEO. You must want to go to reach the same place by knowing where do you want to go, how are you going to go there, how will we know we are actually moving towards that direction, and how will we know when we finally arrive. From my own experience, actually, I've delivered my own vision, much as I have a board. So now I'm a chair, I find myself in a very awkward situation. Because when I was a CEO, I knew exactly what I wanted. I provided resources. I made the decision once the board has agreed, and then those good decisions, and then I made sure I understood my sector. So that's why I'm saying, even as I stand here, I'm not very sure if organizations deliver vision of the CEO or of the board. And in most cases, good CEOs of public service, because that's where my experience is, I think they tend to be very clear what they want to do, and then just tell the board you put the kind of some value addition question, but finally you finalize and you are left delivering it until they come for the next quarter and they expect to see results. So I think that still can be a debate. I would also argue that in public service, I've seen boards who are evaluating their CEO very poorly, but they evaluate themselves very high. Can that work? That the board did exceptionally well, but the CEO failed. That happens. Therefore, you must ask ourselves, even when we are saying how much do we need to judge our CEOs, there should be a very good correlation between the performance of the CEO and that of the board, if the evaluation is objective. I also argue that once you have gotten a CEO with the right competencies, with a good vision, you have the resources and the board is helping make decisions, CEOs are about the results. If you cannot demonstrate results, then I think you have no basis of being there. Therefore, execution, to me, is what differentiates a good CEO and a weak CEO. So you must, as a board, as a CEO, we know we have to deliver within this year these kind of targets. Therefore, every quarter, and in the public service that is religiously done, that every quarter, those who are in state corporations know, there will be a quarterly report, and that quarterly report will be showing what you have realized, what you have not been able to realize will be expected to give an excuse. So if you find your CEOs and the board is constantly giving an excuse, you know that board is not heading towards the right direction. So execution of the targets, of course, will total to performance. Therefore, even if you are hiring a new CEO, I argue that within the first year, he must be able to demonstrate a strategy that he has aligned the people he needs, because even if you have, we say even if you have a rocket-sized brain and you are alone, you can't deliver that strategy. So you must get the right people with the right competencies, and they also put operation processes in line so that you align all that within the first year. If you have not been able to do that first year, those should be warning that we are not, the CEO is not performing, CEO and the board as well. So every quarter, progress report should indicate how good progress is being made or lack of it. Of course, at the annual report, it needs to demonstrate those results as per plan. Either you have exceeded, or you have just met, or you are below. And then if you are like a newly hired CEO within the first year, the board should they continue with you, hoping you can progressively improve performance, or should you be letting the person know that their contract, if it's to be renewed every 1 year, it doesn't look so good. In the public service, we have a tendency of giving 3 years, depending on what organization it is. I said research and universities are 5 years for a VC, because it's expected. 3 years, depending on the organization, can be very short. So we have, it ranges from 3 years to 5 years, renewable once. There must be a good theory and a good reason why you are only renewing once. Because also overstaying does not add value to the CEO, neither does it add value to the organization. And you have seen a tendency of people refusing to go. In good governance, there should be, and I think that's why it has been put in law, and Paul said that, because of this, unless they are in law, people will not just comply. So if you have done 5 years, and you have been given another 5 years, and you are excellent, why wouldn't you move on to any other organization to continue, than to stick on the same organization? We have seen quite a number of people really fight, other people going to court on their behalf to stay. So I argue that within 3 years, depending on the contract in the CEO's letter of appointment, renewing once, I think, should be good enough. And if it's a performer, they should move on to a more challenging organization, because that would earn growth for themselves. If they are not performing, I think 3 years, that we should be very clear as a board. 3 years and you have not performed, I don't think you can be given extra time, because I don't think that will not be good. We also know that when people overstay in an organization, there's a tendency to have a lot of assumption, and the way maybe they treat people changes. So I think that's why there's that kind of be there for 2 terms and leave. I would also argue the performance of CEO. Somebody who did miserably in one organization for 3 years can go to another and perform excellent. Does that happen? Yeah. Then we need to ask ourselves, what is it? So I argue that 2 components are to be right, that the CEO competencies are to be right, and if they are not there, we have to build them. The work environment is equally critical, because if the work environment is not supportive, even a very excellent CEO can fail. And with that, I want to thank you very much. I would rather take questions, because I don't think I would want you to repeat or add anything more. Thank you for your kind attention.
I want to ask a direct question, Professor, on public service. Job security for the CEO. In my view, if you're not very clear about your job security, then your performance is impacted almost immediately. So where does this come in, and why are we seeing a lot of commotion in some of these places?
How do you reconcile the quality of the board members, particularly in the public service, with the capability of the CEO, particularly where the quality of the board might be very questionable?
Job security of a CEO in the public service. You may notice that for job of a CEO in the public service is still turbulent, just like the private sector. Reason, you may realize also what a CEO earns and what the directors who follow them is quite a difference, because the government understands the job of a CEO is more riskier than the others. However, anybody who decides also to take a job of a CEO, may it be a CEO of a state corporation or as a PS, they must also have an entrepreneurial culture. They must know their risks, because they are at the top level. Therefore, but in an ideal situation, if an organization is well led, good management and governance, somebody should feel they have a future in that organization. Therefore, for me, is if The CEO understands their mandate and the strategy, they have a structure, we have policies, and we have system and procedures of how things are done. Then you can have a long-term view. But if the organization is poorly run, like some of the state corporations are turning, maybe their boards are not competent, there is no CEO or is inacting for a long time, that can make it a little bit more turbulent. But ideal, we should be able to move where we have structures and systems that are quite sound, so that even if someone is going to lose their job, it is very clear that they can be held accountable. However, we all live in this Kenya, Dr. Duo. There's politics. There may be a minister who feels maybe they need X who is free fund, and then they'll try to remove them unfairly. And these such matters, we have seen them go to court. Therefore, an ideal situation, it is my hope that we will reach a situation where we are following Mwongozo, which is very good, a code of governance for the public service, where it is very clear the role of the board, the role of the CEO, and everybody else. Therefore, if we follow that, everybody will have, if they are performers, they will have their job quite secure. That's why we're trying to introduce a senior level, perhaps, and you find the CEOs are on contract, while their deputies are not on contract. Therefore, it means we are holding the CEO more accountable than anybody else. Therefore, I think moving forward, we should be able to make it stabilized by having systems and procedures and capacity building, including for the politicians, so that they know this is for the public good. There's a question Mr. Muturi asked, Dr. Muturi asked, how do you reconcile the quality of the board with the capability of CEO? Quite an interesting question. We have had very chaotic boards, yeah. But the CEO has managed to keep the management focused. Yeah. So there are some CEOs who could be better than boards. The only thing why we have boards, I think, is because we have several hands and for the purpose of making a better judgment. And we have found, in fact, there was kind of a feeling that we can do without the boards so long as the management is strong. So it is true there can be cases where the CEO is a very good performer, but the ideal situation is let's have a good quality board, because it's also possible to know a performing board and also a performing CEO, and the opposite. It's possible using the right tools that are supposed to be used for evaluation. I think the CEO is performing, but others, the number three, that kind of perception, the CEO is performing, but others, like board members, feel he is not. I think that is based on some interest. Yeah. Because if we have objective tool of measuring quarterly performance and the annual performance, it should not be about opinion, it should be about data. And the data does not lie. If you are supposed to have performed your target, you did them 100% or even 120, it should look, and the whole board should be able to look at that evaluation and be able to know that the CEO is performing or not performing. So to me, I would say it's the weakness of the board to have those two divisions where one camp is thinking you have performed, the other one. That should be sorted out by the data on the table regarding bringing performance. This is not the data you bring later. It's data which you planned, that there will be those quarterly reports, and this is the format they are supposed to be presented. I think the last question, I'll leave it to Catherine, but anything else that I've also left, you could comment, okay. Give a response.
Okay. I just want to go back also to the question by Mr. Muturi about the quality of the board and the competencies of the CEO. And just to give you a bit of hope, that Mwongozo now has minimum qualifications for board members. So in the past, there have been board members who cannot even express themselves in English. That's true. But I think going forward, if the appointing authorities to follow what is laid down in Mwongozo, then there will be some basic minimum requirements that everybody must have as a board member. In addition, there is a requirement for continuous training for board members. 12 hours per year per board member. At least that sort of assures you of quality in terms of the board members. So that should be some comfort going forward. Now, to what extent should the private organizations have a free hand in selecting their boards when the impact is felt by the public? I think selection of boards is a shareholder issue. And if, as a member of the public, you would like to have a say in the type of board that is selected, then you have no choice but to become a shareholder. Because in corporate governance, that's a shareholder issue. And the type of assurance you want to get is not really about, I want to have a right in selecting the board. It is, I want to be sure that when I put my money in bank X, that I'm going to have access to that money when I need it for whatever reason. That calls for a totally different type of due diligence that, as a member of the public, somebody who has some spare funds somewhere wanting to put in a bank will be looking for, as opposed to the board. So it's a totally different sort of due diligence you're looking at, not the banks. But to put it plainly, it is only the shareholders who select board members. Thank you.